here says by Adam Rishon that Kodesh Baruch Hu confronts him. Kodesh Baruch Hu says, what happened? What Vayomer mihiki lecha ki'irmata hamin ha'itz asher tzivisicha levilta echol mimeno achalta, did you eat from the forbidden fruit? Vayomer Adam ha'isha asher nasati madihinas tali b'yitzvaycha. It wasn't my fault, it was the wife. Rashi says over here, kan kofar batova. Adam Rishon was what we call in English, he was an ingrate. Kodesh Baruch Hu gave him something so good, and Adam Rishon went and he was kofar, he was what was called kofar batova. Then Kodesh Baruch Hu tells him what the punishment is going to be. And the punishment is going to be, you're going to, first the nachash and the wife, she's going to go through childbirth. Then it says, you're going to work, you're going to sweat till you go back to the dirt, to the earth. And you're gonna, what do you call it? Coats the dardar, it's going to be difficult. So he gives him a whole klala over here that you're going to work and it's going to sweat and you're going to die. In the very next pasuk, what does Adam Rishon do? It says, Vayikra ha'adam shem ishto Chava, ki hi ha'isa im kol chai. Well, what an interesting time to name her. You're just told, why is she called Chava? Hi ha'isa im kol chai. That, listen, she's the mother. I mean, now of all times, okay, this is the story. You're going to work and you're going to die. I thought, yeah, Chava. Why? So, one of them unfortunately said, well, Chavya is from a lashon, no fellows al lashon in Aramaic. A snake is called a chivya. And in the Chava and the chivya, that she's the, what do you call it? She's the source of all this trouble is the nachash. But the other Mefarshim say, no, to the contrary, Adam Rishon realizes at this point, he was kafui tova, then he gets the klala, but on the one hand, okay, she caused death, it's a problem. On the other hand, look at all the good that he gets from her. And therefore, right now, he turns around and he expresses the name Chava, which is an expression of Hakaras Hatov to her, Shi Haisa Im Kol Chai. All living beings are going to come from her, all of his descendants, it all comes from her, and therefore, right now, he expresses his Hakaras Hatov. So you get to these two, you get that contrast. You get, on the one hand, something called Hakaras Hatov, which is gratitude, and you get something else which is called being a Kafui Tova, which is being an ingrate. So when Rav Pam Zatzal was in the hospital, Rav Pam was one of the Gedolei Ador in America, and he was in the hospital, and his Talmidim were there. They had a regular 24-hour watch. They were saying Tehillim and everything else. And at a certain point, Rav Pam said to one of the nurses, saw one of the Talmidim there, and they said to these Talmidim, what are you to Rav Pam? And they looked there and said, we're grateful. That's what we are to Rav Pam. So when it comes to Hakaras Hatov, there are many practical applications and broad possibilities of where a person has to express appreciation. So there was an incident in England, there was a rat got into a house, and the kids were running around with brooms. They trapped this rat under a bed, and they wanted to kill the rat. And the Zaidi comes running into the room and says, leave the rat alone. So he says, Zaidi, rats are dangerous, they're disease infested. He said, leave the rat alone, let the rat go. So he said, Zaidi, but it's a rat. He said, listen, I was in the concentration camp, and I was in one of the barracks, and at night it was freezing cold, and we didn't have blankets, so the only way to stay warm is that we would lie against each other in the body heat. We kept each other warm, but I was the guy in the end of the row, and so on my right side there was somebody, but on the left side was completely exposed. But at night, the rats, who themselves were cold, they would come up and they would rub up against me because they wanted to keep themselves warm. So Memela, they kept me warm. So Ad Hayom, I have a Hakaras Hatov to the rats, so leave the rat alone. And the obvious question is, those rats in England were not necessarily connected to the rats over in Europe. What does it mean, Hakaras Hatov? The rats wouldn't appreciate it anyway. So the idea is that Hakaras Hatov, a person has to realize it's a midah. And when a person has, they had a guy in Israel, they had a garbage strike. Those of you who have been living in the country for any great length of time, you know that it's not uncommon, usually around Pesach time. There's a garbage strike, and there was an apartment building. People had left their bags outside their doors. There was nowhere to put it. And one of the neighbors went to each door, and he took the bags, the garbage bags, and he took them outside to the main garbage dumpster. He collected all the neighbors' doors, and he took them out, took out to them. Somebody said to him, "Why'd you do that?" He said, "Listen, I've been living in this building for about 15 years. These are my neighbors. I have a karas hatov to all of my neighbors. The least I could do, I have an opportunity to help them out. It's the least I can do." A lot of people, you'd ask the same thing. They'd say, "Yeah, I've been living here with my neighbors 15 years. I'm putting garbage in front of their doors." So a person, could go, it's a double-edged sword. So I'm sure there are things that his neighbors did that probably irritated him. On the other hand, there were things that they did which he has a karas hatov to them for. So he goes and he takes the garbage. Chaim Kreisworth, the Rav of Antwerp, one of the Gedolei Hador, was once driving, and he got off on the highway, he got out of the car, and he stopped in at a service station to use the facilities. And after he finished in the facilities, he went into the little shop they had there, and he bought a Coke. So his Talmidim were with him, very uncharacteristic of Rav Kreisworth to buy a Coke, to drink pop. And he got back in the car, and they said to him, "Rabbi, why did you do that? Why did you buy that Coke?" He said, "Listen, I went in, I used the service station, and I use his facilities. The least I could do is express my appreciation to the owner who's got to, we use his facilities. The least I could do something for him and buy the Coke and make a purchase." Realizing, of course, that it's a law, I think in every country, there's a law that you have to have facilities. In order to have a service station, it has to have facilities. But the intent of the person that we benefit from is immaterial. The fact that we got a benefit from somebody doesn't absolve us in any way of expressing and feeling hakaras hatov. There was even a goy who was a famous performer in the United States, and after every performance, at the end of his show, he would finish the show by saying, "Good night, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are." And nobody ever knew who this mysterious Mrs. Calabash. And every time he finished the show, a performer would say, "Good night, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are." Nobody knew who she was. After he died, they did some research. They went looking around. They found that when he was first breaking into show business and he was trying to get his big break, he had no money. And there was a woman who allowed him to stay rent-free in a flat, Mrs. Calabash. And until his dying day, he had hakaras hatov to her. That's a guy that's not one of the tribe. It's something so basic in human nature that we understand that it's such a basic midah that a person has to have that sort of hakaras hatov. And Rav Shach Zatzal, when he was a Talmud Muvhak of Rav Isser Zalman Meltzer, and Rav Isser Zalman Meltzer, Rav Shach married his niece, and it was his Rav, there was a Talmud Muvhak. And when Rav Isser Zalman Meltzer Zatzal was nifter, Rav Shach bought the kever, the empty plot, next to Rav Isser Zalman. There was a young Talmud Chacham in Yerushalayim who was nifter. This young Talmud Chacham, when Rav Shach had first come to Eretz Yisrael years earlier, this young Talmud Chacham had been sent by the Rabbanim, and he went and he met Rav Shach at the port. When Rav Shach came in at the port of Haifa, wherever it was, this was the young man who had gone to greet Rav Shach, and a few years later, Rav Isser Zalman was nifter, and then this young Talmud Chacham was nifter. And before he was nifter, he expressed his wish that he wants to be buried next to Rav Isser Zalman. And Rav Shach said that hakaras hatov demands that he forfeit his kever next to his Rebbe Muvhak, and he surrender it up to this young man because he had a debt of gratitude to him because this young man had picked him up. Can you imagine? And so Rav Shach gave up his kever next to his Rabbi Muvhak because of the debt of hakaras hatov. He also he was already the Gadol Hador. Rav Shach was already somebody who was recognized as the leader of Lithuanian Jewry, and he came to Yerushalayim from Bnei Brak, and he knocked on the door of a certain Talmud Chacham. Talmud Chacham had apparently done Rav Shach a favor at some point. Rav Shach felt he owed him a debt of hakaras hatov. So Rav Shach comes over to his house, and a crowd of people, as soon as Rav Shach saw Rav Shach, you can imagine a crowd of people starts following him. Where's Rav Shach going? and Rav Shach comes knocking on his door. Imagine Lahavdu ben Chaim L'Chaim. Imagine how you'd feel today if Rav Chaim Kanievsky would come and knock on your door. Rav Chaim Kanievsky would come looking around for you. How you'd feel? What a kavod! Can you imagine such a kavod? Everybody sees what he's coming, looking, and Rav Shach goes and he knocks on the door of this Talmud Chacham, opens the door. He's shocked. He's astonished to see Rav Shach. Shach said, I came to say thank you. You did me a favor. I came to say that, Rebbe, it wasn't necessary. People are standing outside. And Rav Shach says, and as a token of my appreciation, I brought something for your children. His Rebbe, it wasn't necessary. He comes in, and he pulls out a board game. Rav Shach brought a game for the kids. That was a token of appreciation. She's cringing. He can't. Rav Shach said, call the children. This is Rebbe, it's really not necessary. He says, no, call the children. And he calls the children in. He says, look, I brought you a game. Wow, thank you. He says, okay, now let's open it up so I can teach you how to play. The Gadol Hador sat there at the table with the children, teaching them how to play the game because of his Hakaras HaTov to the father. That's the concept of appreciation. The Torah says, Lo sesoyev mitzri ki gera yisa be'artzo. You're not allowed to give the Mitzrayim a hard time because we were strangers, we were visitors in their land. Now you understand that when the Jews were in Mitzrayim, the Mitzrayim themselves were a bunch of ingrates. Yosef had put their economy on solid footing, Yosef HaTzadik, and as soon as he died, then Avodas Perach begins, and they were completely ungrateful for everything that was done, and beside the fact that being in Mitzrayim was not a 5-star hotel, and yet the Torah says you benefited from them, and since you benefited from them, you have a debt of Hakaras HaTov to the Mitzrayim. Can you imagine such a thing? You benefited, and therefore it is your obligation to appreciate what they've done for you, therefore lo sesoyev mitzri. So, what we understand, first of all, a true Baal Chesed, somebody who's truly a kind person, who helps other people, somebody who's truly a Baal Chesed, not somebody who's doing Chesed in order to get something from somebody. Sometimes if you're nice to people, you get even more. A true Baal Chesed, who's a person who's a true giver, Rav Dessler says, anytime anybody does something for him, he's very sensitive to it. Because he himself knows what it is to give. So as a giver, as an inherent giver, as soon as he's on the receiving end, something clicks. And he understands, I've just received, I owe the other person. There are different ways to pay it, of course. Rav Chatzkel Levenstein, Zatzal was the Meshgiach of Panovich. And Rav Chatzkel, there was a bacher in the yeshiva who was a balgaiva, a mushchas, a selfish person. I mean, everything, every kol midara shemanu chachamim. And Rav Chatzkel Levenstein had nothing to do with this bacher. And then one day he was walking up towards the yeshiva in Panovich, and he was walking up the hill. And this bacher came up behind him, and he took the package out of his hand, and he carried it those few yards up to the yeshiva. He carried the package for Rav Chatzkel. When they got to the yeshiva, Rav Chatzkel turned to the bacher, and he said to him, well, now I owe you one. I have a debt of Hakaras HaTov to you. I have to pay you back. You're a mushchas, you're a menuvel, you're a no goodnik, nothing ever is going to come from you. Right? The bacher, to be told that by Rav Chatzkel Levenstein is what we would say in the old days, not a good thing. The bacher did a complete shinoi. He changed himself completely. That's how he paid his debt of Hakaras HaTov. Don't do it, by the way. Do it, find some other way. But Rav Chatzkel knew that coming from him, that's how you pay. That's how he paid his debt of Hakaras HaTov. In the bacher, for what? Because he carried his package a few steps. That's the debt. A bacher he had nothing to do with up until that point. And at that point, he let into him with both guns blazing. Why? Because he felt he had a debt of Hakaras HaTov. Everybody knows they've done tests on shechita. They've done scientific tests, and it has been proven time after time, not that we need the proof, it's enough the Rebbeinu Shalom tells us, but for those who are doubters, they have found that shechita is the most painless form of killing animals. The knife is extremely sharp. By the time the knife cuts through the trachea and the esophagus, the animal is already dead before it even has a chance to feel the pain. Very much like somebody gets a paper cut. It's only a while later, you don't even realize that you've been cut, till a while later the person sees that somehow they cut themselves on something extremely, extremely sharp. That's how painless shechita is. So there were also, nowadays it always comes up in the news that they wanted to put outlaw shechita because it's inhumane and it's inhu this and inhu that. Where at the end of the day, shechita has been proven. They did once a test where they had a film on a cow. I don't remember all the details of it, but the cow, every time a fly landed anywhere on the cow would flick his tail to get the fly off. And then they kept the camera on the cow as the cow was being shechted, and through the entire shechita, through the shechita process, the cow never flicked the tail. And the understanding was that the fly landing on the cow irritated the cow more than the actual shechita. Other nish. I'm just telling you what they showed in the study. So when we think about shechita, why does the Torah say that? The Torah says you have to shecht and it's got to be as painless as possible. So everybody thinks tsar balei chayim, you don't want to cause pain to the animals, which is true. But why is there an isser of tsar balei chayim? Why does shechita have to be so painless? So the truth of the matter is that if somebody says, well, that's, out of consideration for the cow. If you do a survey among cows, 9 out of 10 cows surveyed would recommend staying alive and grazing to painless death. So it's obviously not something out of consideration for the cows. The reason the Ramban says is that it's what it does to us. If you kill an animal, they used to do in the stockyards in Chicago, they would kill the animals by pouring scalding hot water on them. They would scald the pigs with scalding hot water. That's how they killed them. Because somehow it's fresher that way, something or other. Now, obviously, that's much more painful than shechita. So why is it that we do the shechita? We do the shechita, tsar balei chayim. And tsar balei chayim, why is there tsar balei chayim? Because of what it would do to us. What would happen to a person who goes and takes scalding water? What happens to that person? What does it turn him into? Or a person who takes a blunt object and clobbers the animal over the head and has to clobber it several times. So a person understands that that's going to erode my own sensitivities. That's why the Torah says, by the Irani Dachas, the Torah says, V'nosan l'cha rachamim v'richamcha. Torah says when this whole city, all the halachas of an Irani Dachas, when a whole group of people are oved avodah zarah, so you have to execute them. You have to execute all the people in the city. And it says, V'nosan l'cha rachamim v'richamcha, the Rechaim HaKadosh says, why does the Torah repeat it twice? So give you mercy. If you carry out God's will, He'll have mercy on you. Executing the Rishoyim is a mitzvah. Carries out Hashem's will. So why is it v'nosan l'cha rachamim v'richamcha? Says the Orach Chaim, rachamim means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will have mercy on us. But the second word v'richamcha will be that you will be still a merciful person. That means in engaging in this act of multiple executions is not going to cause your own sensitivities to be eroded. That's what the Orach Chaim says. And therefore a person understands that it's the same thing when it comes to Hakaras HaTov. Hakaras HaTov is a midah. And Chazal say that a bore that you drank from, the Gemara in Baba Kama says if you drank water out of a pit, don't throw a stone back into that pit. Why not? The pit is inanimate. The pit doesn't know the difference. Even more than that, Moshe Rabbeinu, the first 3 makos in Mitzrayim, what does the Torah say? First 3 makos, Moshe Rabbeinu, he wouldn't hit the water, and he wouldn't hit the sand for Kinim. Why? Because Moshe Rabbeinu was protected by the water when he was in the basket, and the sand helped him out when he buried the Mitzri in the sand. So out of his Hakaras HaTov, Moshe Rabbeinu did not hit the water and he didn't hit the sand. Do you know what he forfeited? That means Moshe Rabbeinu didn't participate in the first 3 makos which brought about Kiddush Shem Shemaim in the entire world. Didn't Moshe Rabbeinu feel it was worth it? So you'll hit the water, you'll hit the sand, they don't even know the difference. So why? The answer is because Moshe Rabbeinu knew that this is a midah. And like all other midos, if we don't work on it constantly, inanimate, human, it makes no difference. What is it going to do to me? And Moshe Rabbeinu, the Balei Musar say, was willing to sacrifice his participation in a Kiddush Shemayim across the world because of what the flaw could become, the flaw that would affect his midos. How would his midos be affected if he goes and he becomes a kafui tova to the earth and the water which protected him? Person gives us a ride. Somebody gives you a ride. What do you say when somebody gives you a ride? So it's become the standard, I think the norm. Somebody gives me a ride, I say to him, Tizke l'mitzvos, when you get out of the car. Tizke l'mitzvos, right? Is that what we say? Tizke l'mitzvos. Or somebody does you a favor, your wife cooks you a meal, shkoyach. Right? Shkoyach means you're telling your wife, Hashem should give you a lot of koach to continue cooking meals for me. That's what shkoyach is to your wife. Tizke l'mitzvos, a guy gave you a ride. So you say to the guy, Tizke l'mitzvos. What is Tizke l'mitzvos? Tizke l'mitzvos means that you gave me a ride, and by giving me a ride, you have now earned the privilege, Tizke l'mitzvos, you have now earned the privilege of my bracha. You gave me a ride, and since you gave me a ride, now I say to you, Tizke l'mitzvos, you have earned my bracha. Had you not given me a ride, you wouldn't be getting that bracha. But now you gave me a ride, so now I gave you, you understand what happened here? You didn't express your appreciation. You didn't express your gratitude. To say shkoyach or to say tizke l'mitzvos, you didn't express your appreciation to the person who gave you a ride. So two things were lost. Number one, the submitting, which is why we say thank you. Thank you means I owe you one. And to say I owe you one, it's not a reminder that I have to pay you in the future. I owe you one is a reminder for right now. That's work on my own midos. I owe you one. And if you don't say thank you, you've lost that. If you don't say thank you, you're a kafui tova. You want to say thank you and then add a bracha tizke l'mitzvos. That you could do. Don't worry about ribis dvarim. You could do it. Give you permission. Say thank you tizke l'mitzvos. But say thank you because it's for you the thank you, not for him. Because you have to remind yourself, this person just did for me. And you get out of a car and you slam the door, Tizke l'mitzvos, and you slam the door. You didn't remind yourself of anything. To the contrary, you've told yourself we're even now. He gave me a ride, and I said Tizke l'mitzvos, now we're even. And therefore you lost the benefit of knowing that you owe him one to realize that I have a debt of a koras hatov. So when a person understands that everything we do in Yiddishkeit, somebody comes into your home. Imagine a person who's been completely secular their entire life. They come to your house for the first time they've ever had a Shabbos experience. You walk in, a beautiful Shabbos Suda in your home. And after the meal, say to you, can I ask you a few questions? Sure. So what was that song they sang about the angels when the men came home from shul? Oh, you know, we welcome the angels as we come in every year of Shabbos. The Talmud says, the good angels, the bad angels. Ooh, so spiritual. He says, what was that song about the woman soldier? He says, no, that's the woman of valor. That's the wife, and, you know, we pay tribute to her for, oh, wow, interesting. Then I notice everybody, you know, so he picked up the cup and he made a declaration with the wine. Says, yeah, that's just our declaration that we're the chosen people better than everybody else. Oh, wow, nice, yeah. And what was that thing about then? I noticed that everybody poured water on their hands and said, no. Says, no, that's part of purity before we eat bread. And why were those two breads covered up? Says, well, you know, normally the bread is the feature attraction at the meal, and tonight it's the wine, so we don't want to hurt the feelings of the bread, so we cover it up. Can you imagine somebody sane hearing that in your home? Somebody who up until that point has thought that you and everybody around you is stable. They've had a wonderful, wonderful Suda, and they ask you about this. Everything's making sense till you tell them, we don't want to hurt the feelings of the bread. You know, and then the person looks at everybody else in the room. Did anybody else hear what he just said? And everybody else in the room is saying, yeah, it's true, yeah. I mean, you understand, what are we? Is it him or is it us? Who's off balance here? And the answer is, sure, we cover the challah. You know why? Because it's good for us. Because it helps us to practice our sensitivity. The challah doesn't feel it, but we do. And it's just another in a long list of steps of how we keep our edge in Yiddishkeit and make sure that we don't lose our sensitivities. That's what Hakaras HaTov is about. That's what Tizkila Mitzvahs is about. If we do it, we lose our sensitivity. And I have to realize I owe you, therefore I have to, for my own benefit, for the own sensitivity, refinement of my midos, I have to express my Hakaras HaTov. Why do I bring this up? Said today in the Slichus, in the keynotes, L'cha Hashem hatzdaka v'lanu boshes hapanim. L'cha Hashem hatzdaka. You, Ribbon Hashem, have done so much for us. V'lanu boshes hapanim. We are shamefaced. Why? Because with all the good that you've done for us, we haven't paid back properly. We've taken things for granted. And what's asked for us by the Ribbon Shalom is just be good Jews. Don't talk Lashon Hara. Learn Torah. Treat your wives well. Respect your parents. That's all HaKadosh Baruch Hu asks from us. And what do we do in return? We're kafui tova. L'cha Hashem hatzdaka v'lanu boshes hapanim. It's in Kina Yud Tes if you want to look at it again. And when Klal Yisrael did not want at Har Sinai, they didn't want to hear Hashem's voice. So Hashem said, Moshe Rabbeinu said, the people are scared. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, Mi yitain, halavai, they should always be scared. Chazal, the Gemara says in Avodah Zarah, Mi yitain, they should have said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you help us that we should always have this level of Yiras Shamayim. But they didn't say it, because they didn't want to owe HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Gemara there says they're called Kafuye Tova B'nei Kafuye Tova. You are ingrates descended from ingrates. You are being ungrateful now, and you're descended from Adam Rishon, as I told you earlier, was guilty of being a Kafuye Tova. That's what the Torah says. And Chazal say, Kol HaKofer B'Tovaso Shel Chavero, somebody who does not recognize or denies the good, the benefit he received from somebody else, Levasof kofer b'tovaso shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In the end, he's going to deny the good that he got from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. A person who has received good and he doesn't acknowledge the good, in the end, he's going to not acknowledge the good he received from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What's the idea of kibbud avim? Honoring parents. Unfortunately, say, obviously, parents have given us so much. Parents have brought us into the world. We have an unrepayable debt of Hakaras HaTov to our parents. There's nothing we can do for them that evens the score. And even Lu Yitzuyr, a son, would save his father's life. So we're even now. He gave me life, I saved his life. No, it doesn't work that way. Because had he not given me life, I wouldn't be here to save his life. And therefore, it's an unrepayable debt for everything parents have done. And ultimately, the Mefarshim say, the chinuch it's brought down, what's underlying the idea of Hakaras HaTov to parents? Because if we show Hakaras HaTov to the physical entities, mom and dad, that will bring us to show Hakaras HaTov to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for everything that he's done for us. Rabbi Victor Miller was once, his grandson walked into the house, and he saw his Zaidi, Rav Victor Miller, had filled the kitchen sink with water all the way to the top, and he had his head immersed in the water. If you know anything about Rav Victor Miller, anything is possible with him, was possible. And his grandson watches, and after about a minute and a half, Rav Miller pulls his head out of the water, and he starts breathing. Then he puts his head in the water again. Keeps his head unsubmerged for a minute and a half, and again he pulls his head out of the water and starts breathing. So his grandson said to him, Zaidi, why are you doing that? So Rabbi Miller said, I was downstairs, I was out taking a walk, and I ran into a man, and he started complaining about the smoggy air in New York. And it started getting me for a moment thinking, the air is kind of smoggy. And then I realized I'm being a kafui tova. Kodesh Baruch Hu gave us air. What would happen if we didn't have air to breathe? Any air, smoggy or otherwise. So what did I do? I filled up the sink and I submerged my head in water. Put your head in water in the kitchen sink for a minute and a half. Any air is good, even the air of New York. Any air is good. Because Rav Miller did not want to lose the sensitivity of his gratitude to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I owe HaKadosh Baruch Hu Hakaras HaTov for everything he's given us. L'cha Hashem hatzdaka v'lanu boshes hapanim. We have come up short. And what's asked from us? And this applies in every relationship in the world. It applies to children and parents. Everybody's got tainas and minas on their parents. They didn't do this for me, they did that for me, they didn't do this for me, they did that for me. We had a young man in this yeshiva who once wrote a letter to his parents. In the letter, he castigated his parents in the harshest terms. Why did you deprive me of all Yiddishkeit? And eventually, when I was 23 or 25, I had to go and find it on my own. And he wrote a very severe, harsh letter to his parents. So he showed me the letter to ask me what he thought of it. And I said to him, okay, we are going to take this letter and we are going to tear it up. And we are going to write another letter. And the letter you write is going to say, Dear Mom and Dad, I want to thank you for everything you've done for me, and especially for instilling within me truth as a value. And because you instilled truth as a value, all I've done is taken it to the next level. And that's how I want to live my life. Now, you have to understand there are three things happening here. Number one, it has very practical benefits because there are very few parents in the world. Number one, being thanked by their kids has benefits down the line. Very tangible green benefits in many cases. But that's not the main reason. There are no parents in the world who, if you say to them, wow, thank you for instilling truth in me as a value, they're going to say, no, we didn't. We said you should be a shyster. There are no parents in the world like that. All parents, for some reason, pride themselves on being people of truth and instilling truth and honesty in their kids. Number one. Number two. Number three, there's truth to it. What did his parents instill in him? What gave him the schus? Why did he end up looking for truth? We don't know what HaKadosh Baruch Hu's shikulim, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu's shbeinos are. But did his parents instill something in him that helped him to eventually arrive here? Are you sure it's no? Then assume it's yes, and express your gratitude for it, or otherwise you're an ingrate. So besides the fact that castigating parents is an Isser D'Oraisa, and has zero benefits, maybe you have an actual debt of a Hakaras HaTov. And a husband to a wife. Husbands always know exactly where their wives are coming up short in their duties because the husband is just such a malach. Shabosai, I always tell the men, got an exercise for you to do. Go take a good, long, hard look in a mirror and ask yourself one question. How would I like to be married to me? Ask yourself that question. Tainas, you have tainas. You have a shivcha, takes care of you, yoma v'layla, does a million things for you. And one thing didn't come out on Shabbos the way you wanted it to. All of a sudden, tainas? That's why you have tainas. That's a kafui tova. Oda Marisho, she just brought him work and death. And I don't know which one is worse. And what does he do? He turns around and he says, chava, an expression of Hakaras HaTov. Because at the end of the day, he benefits from her. Say 100 brachas a day. Why are we saying 100 brachas a day? Baruch atah Hashem. You are the source of all blessing, Hashem. You are the source of all blessing, Hashem. 100 times a day. Could you imagine a person who does that? A person who does that 100 times a day. A person goes and he says, Baruch atah Hashem. By the end of the day, he's going to have a different relationship with the Rebbeinu Shalom. If he's thinking about what he's saying, instead of saying, blessed art thou, he thinks to himself, you are the Makor HaBracha. My blessing comes from you. At the end of the day, he's going to have a different relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Can you imagine a husband saying that to his wife 100 times a day? You are the source of my joy. Thank you for supper. You are the source of my joy. Thank you for doing the towels. You are the source of my joy. Thank you for not using the credit card. Could you imagine 100 times a day a husband saying that to his wife? All right, we're into science fiction here. But imagine can you imagine the relationship that he would have with her? How he would look at her, not for her benefit. She deserves it. But besides, how does he view her? What does he do to himself? And what about your rebellion? And what about your friends? People who are around you, helping you, concerned about you all the time. You, me, I'm talking to me. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says, mitzvah goreres mitzvah. Mitzvah causes another. Schar mitzvah mitzvah. Schar mitzvah mitzvah. So there are different explanations. What does schar mitzvah mean? So Rav Dessler explains, Rav Chaim Volozhin, schar mitzvah means HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a tovu meitiv. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. All we understand with our limited, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu has revealed to us about himself is he's a tovu meitiv. He wants kavayochel to do good, to bestow good. Every time we do a mitzvah, we get schar. By allowing HaKadosh Baruch Hu to give us schar, he's bestowing tov on us, which in itself is a mitzvah. And because it's a mitzvah, we get more schar. And because we get more schar, HaKadosh Baruch Hu then bestows that tov on us. That's a mitzvah. Says Reb Chaim Volozhin, schar mitzvah means it's endless. No end to the schar. It's eternal. Because for every moment of schar we get more schar for receiving the schar. It's a great deal. It doesn't happen down here on earth. The boss pays you, say, well, thanks a lot. The boss is just thrilled to pay you more. It doesn't happen. To the contrary, you say thank you, he thinks he's overpaying you. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the schar of the schar is schar. A remarkable concept. So it says, Sof Dover HaKol Nishma. Second to last pasuk in Koheles. Sof Dover HaKol Nishma. Take a look at the Targum over there on both sides. On the second to last pasuk in Koheles, the Targum says, everything HaKadosh Baruch Hu Lasid Lavo is going to roll out the scroll. Every single thing that's happened in the Bria, from the time the world was created till the end of time, every incident, every single thing that's happened, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will show us how that affected each individual. And each individual will then will show, feel Hakoras Atov to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, how everything in the Bria, every tree, every blade of grass, every airplane flying, what was the benefit for me from that action in the Bria? Could you imagine? Could you imagine? Beyond comprehension. But what that means is that to the degree that we show Hakoras Atov to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is the degree that we will then live with eternity, for eternity, with the feeling of Hakoras Atov. And the more Hakoras Atov we'll have, the more Hakoras Atov we'll need to show. And the more we need to show for what HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals to us, the more Hakoras Atov we'll have. And it will be an endless, eternal cycle of Hakoras Atov. Person understands there was a taina on us. And the taina was, you were ingrates. I gave you so much good, and you didn't pay back the way you should have. Comes along Tisha B'Av, and Tisha B'Av says, you know what, the base of Mikdash was destroyed. I've had a long time to think about it. It was destroyed because of a lack of Hakaras Hatov. So it's like the father punishes his son and says, go on into your room. Now think about what you've done. We've thought about it. We understand that it's not the right mahalach in life. Not to people, and certainly not to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore our avoda is, we want to take something out of Tisha B'Av, everywhere around us, look around a little bit. Who do I owe a debt of gratitude to? Who can I express my thank you to by saying thank you, not tizkila mitzvahs and shkoyach? Who can I look at and say, thank you, I owe you? And the answer is basically every single person who you meet, every single person who you see. In the same way that we have a gratitude to every single individual, we have gratitude to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for every single thing he does for us, not just the big things, not just when there's a simcha or when there's a windfall. For every single thing, I'll call neshima uneshima, for every breath that we take. And therefore, we as a group collectively have to, one of the avodas, I don't say it's the only avoda, but one of the avoda ultimately is to internalize the midah of Hakaras Hatov to human beings, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Be'ezer Hashem, that will help us be another step on the way to the ultimate Gula.